Yo, what up, man? I was just riding and something was on my mind, and I was like, you know what? I've been saying I'm gonna make these speeches, I'm gonna share these things that I feel are on my mind, and I overcomplicate it. I'm like, I gotta have the fancy camera, I gotta have the unique background, and it just leads to things not being done. So as I was driving, I say, man, I'm just gonna pull over and get this bad boy done. So, real quick, what I want to talk about is how do you know if you're hearing from God? And this ain't going to be a long video because it's very simple. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Occam's razor, but I feel like when we read the Bible and in my own personal interactions with God, everything is just simple. And that's what Occam's razor talks about. Occam's razor basically says whatever is usually the most simple is probably the truth, right? So, for example, if you asked someone what happened here, why did this happen, and they give you this super long, complex story, and then you ask a second person and they give you the really quick, short version. Oh, the dude he came to work drunk, he tried to climb the ladder, he fell down and hurt himself. That story, the shortest, most simple story, is probably the truth. And I feel like hearing from God is just like that. It's very simple. And when we look at how God interacts with people throughout the word and throughout history, it's very simple. And so I'm gonna give you a very simple principle. It's gonna sound so simple. Like, why did you even make this video? It's so short. It's so simple though. And here's what it is. If you have to ask yourself, are you hearing from God? The answer is probably no. I believe that when we hear from God, we know. God is not an author of confusion. He's not a God of confusion. He's a God of peace. All right. But even though we might know we're hearing from God, it's our lack of faith that makes it so we think we're not hearing from God. I'll give you an example. First of all, let's talk about this. If you have to ask, is that God? The answer probably is most likely no. You're going to know that you're hearing from God. God's going to make it clear. But there are a few things that we can do. Okay, so number one, if you're hearing from God and it's something that goes against his word, it's probably not God. It's probably your own thoughts, your own desires, your own fear. It's your own mind, which if you haven't been renewing your mind, it's your own mind working against you. That's an easy one. Now, let's talk about Gideon. Gideon was hearing from God. He knew he was hearing from God, but he complicated it through his lack of faith. He basically puts God to a test and says, well, God, if this is you, when I put this, I'm going to just say hoodie, when I put this hoodie on the ground, let there be dew on the ground. In other words, let the ground be wet, but let the hoodie be dry, right? He woke up, he looked at it. Sure enough, that's what God did. The ground was wet, the hoodie was dry. Gideon knew he was hearing from God, but he still went back and said, hey, God, if that's really you, forget this miracle that just happened. If that's really you, this time, let the hoodie be wet and let the ground be dry. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And so a lot of times we're hearing from God and we know we're hearing from God, but we will deceive ourselves and say, well, maybe it's not God because of our lack of faith or because of our fear or because we don't like what God's saying. So a lot of times we know we're hearing from God deep down. That quiet, still voice has made himself clear to us. But due to our own fear of failure, which thinking God's not going to see us through in that thing he's telling us, we question it. Or, right, we're rebellious at heart. It's just really what it comes down to. Now, another way we're going to hear from God is it's going to be in his word. I was reading the word today. And there's something I've been dealing with and struggling with in my life. And I've been asking people, talking to my wife, and just going in circles up here. And I get in the word today and I read something. Now I want to show you another way God talks to us. A lot of times the way God will talk to us is he will put it on our spirit to go read something in the word. Because God will talk to us through his word. God was telling me, go study this. God gave me a word. Go study that. And when I say God gave me a word, I'm not saying God gave me a word like, hey, you're going to be yada yada. No, God gave me a word. It was one word, like literally one word. And God says, go study that word. Go look for where that word shows up in the Bible and go study that. And when I went to go study that, I was led to a passage that I was not anticipating being led to. And as I read that passage, God spoke to me. God made it clear to me where you are, why you have the problems that you're having, what you're dealing with, what you need to do next, and what the results will be. It is so freaking simple. See, a lot of times we don't hear from God because we're not obedient in the simple things that will cause us to hear from him. And one of those things that'll cause us to hear from him is getting in his word. It is called the living word, because you might read the book of Proverbs chapter 1 today, and God will talk to you about something going on in your life today, and next year you'll go read Proverbs 1 again, and God will talk to you about something that's going on in your life next year. He'll use the same word to speak to you. It's kind of like when I'm talking to my daughter and I say, hey, Amris, be nice to your sister. That's my word. I'm her father. I'm giving her my word. I say, Amris, be nice to your sister. Maybe I'm saying be nice to your sister because she's had a hard day, and my tone and how I express that to her heart and into her soul communicates that you need to be nice to your sister today because, she's had a tough time. But then again, I can say the same thing. Amris, be nice to your sister. It's the same word. But now I'm saying be nice to your sister because if you don't, you're setting a bad example of what it means to show love, and you're not showing love when you're not being nice to your sister. I'm giving my daughter the same word, but the word has a different meaning at a different season in her life. Woo! Thank you, Jesus. We cooking, baby. Listen, that's what I'm saying. So a lot of times we don't hear from God because we not getting in the word. We making it a one-way conversation. We making it a monologue. We praying. God, let me talk to you. Let me talk to you. Let me talk to you. But I don't want to hear from you. God, let me talk to you. Let me talk to you. Let me talk to you. Why won't you answer me, God? Because you not going to where he going to talk to you, which is through his word. So you see what I'm saying, man? Look, it's very simple. One, when God talks to you, you know it's him talking to you. Two, it's us who complicate it through our own fears and selfish desires and rebellious heart. Three, we won't even take action in the simple thing that God tells us, which is to get in his word so that he could speak to us about our situation, give us direction in our situation, and even let us know what the outcome's going to be. So hope that's a blessing to somebody. I'm outie. Have a good day.